Action plan to Mark Taylor prophecy purging the temple the 26th of April 2016, get out of the 501c3 fast. End Times Beacon. The Spirit of God says, the 501c3, the 501c3, those that are eating of it are not eating from my tree. For when I told Adam and Eve, do not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for you shall surely see, so it is with those that eat from the 501c3. A church that has chosen to be in the 501c3 is equated with Adam and Eve, who disobeyed and partook in the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. A church does not need to be in the 501c3 at all. Just because everyone else is jumping off a cliff, does that mean you need to do that too? No. How accurate is the crowd usually? Not very. What's the way of the broad path? The easy way. The church that has chosen to partake in the 501c3 is eating from the wrong tree. Those churches who have partaken in the 501c3 have fallen and have put themselves under the control of the kingdom of darkness. Those churches under the 5013c3 are in Babylon. They are under the control of Babylon, the mother of all harlots. 501c3 participation can be considered an act of treason to the kingdom of heaven. Most churches have been treasonous. Most churches will be shocked at this prophecy and may even scoff. They're in big trouble, for when the second express of the evil crew of 32 dies, then judgment comes to the church, and that judgment is sounding like it will be severe. If your church is part of the 501c3, it would be wise for you to stop giving money to them, as shocking as that may sound. Unfortunately, if you've given to them in the past, and who hasn't, then you've been investing in the kingdom of darkness. That's not good. Haven't you realized the difference between these denominations' doctrines, their fake doctrine sales pitches versus the Bible? Who are you going to believe? God or some religious organization? How come most pastors cannot accurately answer basic Bible questions? Don't you know that we're not supposed to lord over each other? So we have these religious institutions that tell you what to do from their man-made doctrines, that is like Pharisees. They tell you what to think and say, and then threaten you if you go against their doctrine, telling you you're going to go to hell and all this, and that if you don't obey their man-made doctrine that they made up for their own benefit, or Lucifer's benefit. Is that even biblical behavior? Didn't the Lord already warn us about how the world tries to rule over in a dictatorial and tyrannical style? The Spirit of God says, for this demonic document that you have signed has now made you spiritually deaf, mute, and blind. So God actually says what he means and means what he says in the Bible? Uh-oh. Which one of these denominations actually preached the whole New Testament? Do they not cut out verse after verse that don't match up to their itching ears' flesh or self as Lord doctrines? Or their religious institution as Lord doctrines? The Spirit of God says, woe to those who continue to use this demonic system, for you will be exposed and purged from this evil system. Pastors, is your church still in the 501c3? This prophecy is over 2 years old as of this typing. Go study and see what the 501c3 is really all about. It's a bunch of nonsense used to control you. See for yourself. There is no necessity for you to be in it. Also consider the consequences if your church does not get out of it immediately. If you don't repent, you may lose it all, and pastors may be removed from the face of the earth, as God says. Another thing to think about. You may think that because of your doctrines that if you just say a sinner's prayer once, you can do whatever you want. Better read the New Testament over a bunch of times. That's not the case at all. Learn what it means to wash your feet. Learn what a Lord is, and learn what Jesus as Lord actually means. Warning, you may be one of those pastors that Peter and Jude talk about. That's not good. So repent. If in doubt, repent anyways. Repent means to change all of your cerebral and heart thoughts and beliefs to what God says in the Bible. Throw away your doctrines fast, for they put a powerful stronghold over you. Your doctrines, like blinders on a horse, prevent you from seeing many verses in the New Testament. I speak from much experience. The Spirit of God says, can you not see that you are taking a bribe? They will say it's all about the money, and for that you shall be kicked from my tribe. The threat gets worse. Kicked out of God's tribe? That sounds drastically bad. So don't mess around or wait another moment for your sake and your congregation's sake. Sounds like hell. Demand your church get out of the 501c3. Show them this prophecy. Or go start another church or go to some other church. Churches are going back to home church style of a max 120 people, as prophets have said here in this kingdom age. Consider doing something quickly, especially when there is a threat to your eternity on the line in terms of getting kicked out of God's tribe. The Spirit of God says, taking a bite from that apple has taken you from a spiritual body to a brick and mortar, and has placed you under the new world order. That sounds scary. You need that eternal body in order to get into heaven, right? Is this referring to flesh-based thinking or to a loss of salvation? Considering the previous verse of being kicked out of God's tribe, take the threat very seriously. And don't stick to your denominational man-made doctrine, twisted interpretation of the Bible and salvation. Just read the Bible and accept all the verses in the Bible and you'll get a composite whole of what it takes to be saved. Know what God says, all of it. Do what God says, all of it. It's very simple. Don't try to prove yourself right to God, just submit and be willing to do what He says to you. Talk to God directly about these matters. We are in a change of timeline right now, having entered a new age on the earth called the Kingdom Age. Get in tuned with it fast if you're not already. The Spirit of God says, "For how can you be a part of my spiritual body when you have cut off my head?" Yes, most of these pop doctrines have cut Jesus out as Lord, as I've been saying for quite a while. How is this? They deny Jesus as Lord because they don't accept and teach what Jesus says. They didn't want Jesus as Lord. They want to be their own Lord and make themselves God, just like Lucifer. They won't accept the denial of self, death to self, the denial of the flesh, the denial of the happiness of the flesh heart. They want to maximize the happiness of their flesh heart in this world when God says to deny the pursuit of the flesh. God says we need to suffer out the flesh and lose our life in this world, giving it over to Jesus instead. Many in the world cannot tolerate this message, so they twist around the Bible and try to tell God how things should be, trying to make themselves God over God, just like Lucifer. This is why they have cut out the commands of Jesus of the New Testament. They don't even know what a Lord is besides a title of some chap in England. For how can you call Jesus Lord if you don't do what He says? When you confess Jesus is Lord as stated in Romans 10:9-10, open in Logos Bible software, if available, you admit Jesus your Lord, which means that you admit that you have to do what Jesus says from the New Testament and in real time in the Spirit. Why do you call me, Lord, Lord, and do not do what I say? Luke 6:46, open in Logos Bible software, if available. How did this happen? This happened due to a yeast infection. The yeast of Pharisee and the yeast of Herod. How many of these denominations teach that you must obey all that Jesus say? How many of these denominations teach Jesus' commandments of the New Testament, and do so as absolute requirements, otherwise you become a worker of lawlessness? And as stated in Romans 10:9-10, open in Logos Bible software, if available. You have no salvation unless you have obedience to Jesus, God the Son. This happened also due to the 501c3. Because if the kingdom of darkness can get you to deny Jesus as Lord, which means that you disobey what He says, what He commands from the New Testament, then the kingdom of darkness can win and claim souls for themselves. Understand that we are undergoing the same test here as the angels did. Who are you going to follow? Obey as Lord and God? Or are you going to obey the ways of sin and evil and make Lucifer Satan your Lord? The Spirit of God says, for those that don't turn will surely fall as dead. Now the threat increases. Are you interested in being taken out early in a state that is unpleasing to God? Repent quickly. The Spirit of God says, tear up the contract, repent, divorce Baal, and remarry me, and El will remove the spiritual blindness so you can once again see. Obey. Stop thinking. Stop caring what man thinks. Fearing man, trying to please man is a snare. Come out of this. Come out of this before it's too late, for my judgments are on those systems that I hate. God is now pleading for you for your sake? That usually happens when things are about to become final. There is a timeline to things. Get with the timeline. Don't mess with God. Get it done. Man up. Don't be a pansy. Save yourself and your ministry. Repent and turn to God. Throw away your denominational doctrine and now teach people how to make Jesus their Lord and how to be taught by Him directly. Teach people the commands of the New Testament as you were supposed to do, and we all are, as commissioned in Matthew 28 hours 19 minutes -20. Come out now, for I will no longer tolerate. Time's up.